Well, Adam, we've been talking all morning about the legacy of President George H.W. Bush across the country and right here in the Granite State.
Joining us on the phone right now is New Hampshire Governor Chris Sununu. Governor Sununu, thanks for joining us. First of all, first, just your reaction to the passing of President Bush.
Well, you know, I think we're all incredibly saddened. It was, he was just an incredible guy. You know, he was someone that I think for many decades folks looked up to, saw him as a true statesman, what he did for this country in some very tough times. And so anytime you have a loss like that, it's a shock. It really is, even though he's 94 and you know, with the passing of Barbara, I think a lot of folks knew that he was definitely in some of his final years. But on a day like this, it still comes as a surprise, and it's really a day of reflection for someone who was a true American hero for this country.
Governor, you were fairly young when H.W. was in the White House. Do you have any memories of that time?
Of course. I mean, it was it's one of the most impressionable times of my life personally. Obviously, our families were very close. My father spent, I mean, virtually every day with him in the White House for many, many years. It was during my high school years. And, you know, one of the things about the president that was so amazing was even as a president, he connected with folks at a very individual level. That's, I think, why he was so successful here in New Hampshire, you know, in the great 1988 turnaround in the primary, because he understood that, you know, by connecting with folks, it really had an impact in terms of where you take policy as a president or as a public official. And through that and through the kind of the connection of our families, he was just really amazing at, you know, we were a bit uprooted, right? We had moved down to Washington, my younger brother and myself and my parents. And I think he, whenever we saw him, he was always very good about taking a moment and coming aside and saying, hey, how's it going? You know, it's in Washington and the atmosphere down there, I think he appreciated was very different than New Hampshire. And I think he knew it was a sacrifice for the family, but he was always quick to come over and ask. And, you know, in high school, I played baseball and he was a great baseball player himself. And so I think he always appreciated the connection about asking someone how the team was doing or how the season was going. And I was always shocked. As many times as he would do it, you're always shocked that the President of the United States would take time like that. So he really he had a real knack for connecting with people at an individual level, and it's not an easy skill at that level. It's really not, and something I think everyone appreciated, and which is why he was so successful in a lot of what he did, both nationally and across the world.
Governor, what do you see as the legacy of President Bush?
You know, he was a character. I mean, it's really about character and integrity. I mean, I don't think even his most ardent political opponents couldn't say that he wasn't a man of character and integrity. He knew that not just the office of the president, but as vice president, as head of the CIA, going all the way back in his time of becoming a naval aviator, you know, back in World War II. He was somebody that had the experience, that carried those experiences with him, that built on them, treated people with respect. And I think that's something that everybody, no matter how much you might have disagreed with him politically, everyone hold him in great esteem for, both during his political and public career and after. I mean, let's not forget all the amazing things he did after being president, all the charitable organizations he was involved in, the time he spent. I mean, he really focused on kids a lot, really focused on kids and the health and well-being of children across this country. He and Barbara as well. They were just quite an incredible team, and so at the end of the day, it's really about integrity and character, and again, giving a little more of yourself just for the greater good. It's very impressive.
A great president and an even more amazing public servant. Governor Chris Sununu, thank you for calling in today to share some of your recollections of President Bush.
Thank you.